Hogstye.
And welcome back to another episode of the Hogstye. It is the Ravens pregame show here. Alex is indisposed. Rob Henson is working again. So we're down to just Jamal and I. I know you want to hear Jamal. You probably don't want to hear me, and I don't blame you.
I am the star of the show. So
you are the star of the show, especially when I have to host. It just goes bad. I had to host IJB too. It's just,
Oh man, so you had two out of two shows this week.
Yeah, there's a reason we dump these things on Alex, when we have to, these kind of jobs.
And he doesn't mind it.
He does all right. Yeah, he really does all right at it. Certainly better than me. There's lots of Washington news this week, of course, so we're just going to jump right in to this thing. Number one, some roster moves. Washington put Matt Ioannidis on IR. That doesn't necessarily mean he's done for the year, but it looks like he probably is because he tore a bicep, which is never good.
Yeah, he done.
yeah, that's right. I mean, it's, I suppose hypothetically possibly come back, but realistically he's done. So they brought Nate Orchard up from the practice squad to replace him on the roster, but I think realistically Tim Settle is probably next up. Jamal, thoughts on Tim Settle? I love the guy.
I like him. I'm not going to, truth be told, I do remember when he came in as a rookie, he was really good. He made a little bit of noise for the limited time that he had last year. And you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm really going off my memory here. And everybody's memory is shot at some point. But last year I know he didn't get that much opportunity as he did compared to his rookie year. Like I guess I don't even know what the issue was, but he didn't get a lot of time in my opinion, or the same amount if not more than what he could have in his rookie year. So I didn't see much from him last year, but Settle, I've liked him in terms of what I do remember him for, and if he's getting more opportunities with this staff, I think that it can be a good look, or at least what's the word? We can maintain, because obviously Ioannidis and Settle are two different types of linemen. They're not necessarily the same type of lineman, so it'll be interesting. And I think the bigger thing is what Nate Orchard can do, because getting another guy off the edge. Obviously, we know that Chase Young, and I think you'll get to that, Chase Young is out for this week.
Right.
Getting Nate Orchard in the rotation, knowing what he was able to do in that small, I want to say it was 2018, or was it last year, Steve?
It was last year.
Last year, okay. Yeah, he had some time last year where he looked really good, too, off the edge. So, that'll be interesting as well. But with this coaching staff, I'm actually pretty intrigued to see how Tim Settle can develop, or how quickly he develops, and then seeing what they have for Nate Orchard.
Yeah, the important point to remember here is Ioannidis was an interior defensive tackle. The guy they brought up is a defensive end, Orchard, as you say. And so Tim Settle is the man. And, yeah, I think you're right in saying that, last year, just looking into snap counts, I mean, he's averaging, he had some games where he played almost half the game early in the year, but toward the end of the year, he's kind of averaging maybe 25% of defensive snaps. So he hasn't played that much. I liked his rookie film a lot. I think he's more versatile than people realize. I think he can play sort of anywhere from the 0 all the way out to about the 5 tech, realistically, if he really has to. Nate Orchard, but I mean, from a practical reality sense, this is going to be the Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan show, at least this week. And Jamal mentioned Chase Young. We got some good news, sort of good news on Chase Young, in that his groin injury is mild, which means he's going to be out for this week against the Ravens, but we can envision a scenario where he's back fairly quickly. That having been said, groin injuries seem to be one of those things that lingers, so I'd rather him sit out a game or two if he has to and not have something get more serious.
Did he have any injury histories? Did he have an injury history at Ohio State?
Not a significant injury history, no. I think he missed a game or two here and there. Didn't he miss the? I think he even missed the Big Ten title game. Did he not? I believe he did.
I think he did.
It was something. But he's not one of these guys that's had an ACL tear or anything, major like that, or some lingering like all year groin injury. So I think we think you should be fine. They also made a couple practice squad moves. I'm not going to dwell on that because we have more, better things to talk about. I'll just say that they cut the kicker, so now we don't have a backup kicker. Brett Mayer is gone, but I don't know why they ever signed a backup kicker in the first place, to be honest. Okay, so let's get to the Baltimore Ravens because this is why we're all here. We saw them we're going to start with the Ravens offense here because that's the big deal. We saw them get absolutely pounded by the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. Did you watch that game, Jamal?
Yes, I did. And for my luck, I have not gotten onto the best of starts in my my gambling. So I did watch the game, and I did watch me lose some money. I absolutely did. I was a little frustrated.
Somebody did not cover the spread, right?
No, they did not cover the spread. I hit on the under, but it doesn't matter when you have a parlay.
Yeah, see, I mean, this is why I don't do it. It would drive me crazy,
Yeah.
Okay, but in terms of the Baltimore Ravens offense, I think you sort of have to throw out their performance against the Kansas City Chiefs as a relevant base of comparison because the truth of the matter is the Chiefs just have their number. They've beaten Lamar Jackson like 3 times in a row now. It's really the only games he loses are to the Chiefs. So I don't think we're going to see an offense that just can't do anything here on Sunday. So let's start with Lamar Jackson, and let's throw some numbers out here. First of all, Jackson this year is completing passes at a clip of almost 69%. He's got a quarterback rating of 112, 5 TDs, no interceptions. So it's not like, despite what we saw in Kansas City, he's having another good year. Now, the Ravens as a whole don't pass very much. This is absolutely running team. We're talking about last in the NFL in pass attempts, and 12th in the NFL in rushing attempts. So, in terms of their offense, obviously the number one trick is stop Lamar Jackson from killing you. Easier said than done, but that's the start of it. And, if you watch his film, what they do with Lamar Jackson, they do a couple things with their offense. Number one, there's a lot of misdirection, a lot of play action, a lot of motion going all different directions, and that's intended to fool the defense into not knowing what they're doing. But in terms of Jackson, he runs a lot of outside zone Lamar Jackson runs a lot of called runs. Even back to Louisville, he's not a scrambler. This is not Johnny Manziel, one read and go. Lamar Jackson can actually play. He can actually read a field. Forget the Chiefs. He can do all of that, and he is deadly. Deadly, deadly, deadly. Thoughts on Lamar Jackson?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think there's any. And now I'm not including Chase Young in this when I speak about this week specifically. I don't think there's anybody on our defense as explosive as Lamar Jackson. He is somebody where it's like you just don't know how you're going to contain him. Like from the outside perspective, and even from an inside perspective, like you can have a game plan going in, but who is physically able to tackle Lamar Jackson one-on-one in open field? Because Greg Roman's going to design those plays where it's one-on-one with the quarterback. You're going to have a defensive. It's what we've seen with RG3 a lot against what you'll see with what's the guy's name? The defensive end with the Cowboys at one point. He went to the Broncos. DeMarcus Ware. I couldn't think of his name.
DeMarcus Ware.
So that 2012 year where they was leaving DeMarcus Ware on the island, all you had to do was tackle RG3. You couldn't do it. It was impossible. They do a lot of designs where you have that opportunity to get Lamar Jackson to the ground, but at the end of the day, he's just a better athlete than most of the defenders on the field. And for him individually, before we get to like his weaknesses, him individually, like the ultimate run threat. You seen what you saw with Kyler Murray and how he was able to attack this defense. Lamar Jackson is the next level. And when you have better run threats and a better offensive line, and with what the Ravens has, it becomes an even bigger headache to defend. So it's gonna be rough. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I mean, realistically, you're right. I mean, Washington does not have any player who can adequately match up against him. Normally, you'd be thinking linebacker or safety to maybe
Yeah,
some
that's
teams even
literally.
want to
Yep.
even want to spy him. It's just not going to work.
That's
you know,
literally what I was
it's
getting at because Darwin James was the guy, the one guy. Like he was the best example, but he was the only guy who was the ultimate equalizer in terms of what the Chargers were able to do in that playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens. He was the guy who's or Durbin. I don't know if I said Darwin,
Derwin
but
James.
yeah,
Yeah,
he was the guy who was able to allow some flexibility for that Chargers defense. And made life hell for the Ravens offense in that playoff game. But yeah, I just don't see it with our defense in terms of matching or being able to keep up with Lamar.
yeah. I mean, realistically, and I don't mean this as a joke. The only guy with the speed of Lamar Jackson is Troy Apke, and you certainly don't. That's just way beyond Troy Apke's ability, and plus he's a free safety anyway. So you don't want that. Look, weirdly enough, normally when we have these mobile quarterbacks, my thought is always try to contain him in the pocket and don't blitz, have the backer stay home and all that. But let me tell you, after watching what Kansas City did to him, I'm thinking the only way to stop him is to crash down on every single play, blitz the guy relentlessly, because the Chiefs kind of got him off his game a little bit. I'm not saying this is going to work, but what we do know is you're not going to contain him. You do know that when they run that outside zone and he's keying off our linebackers who are half as slow as he is, there's just no hope in this. And so, to me, Washington blitzes really well. Even without Chase Young, even last year they were a good blitzing team. I'm thinking maybe you take an alternate approach from conventional wisdom and just blitz them relentlessly.
But I now I'm
Just
not
a thought.
saying. Oh yeah, I wasn't about to say you're wrong. I will say if they
Oh, I'm
implement.
probably wrong. It's probably
No,
wrong.
but CeeLo, if what in the world was that? I was about to say if they implement your game plan in terms of blitzing him, I just feel like what's going to have to happen is now you hope for this and expect this on every snap, but it doesn't happen. But you need your defensive linemen to win their matchups. Like you need that, and you need
Yes,
them to beat them more consistently. Because if you're not winning up front and you're having that one person blitz and it's one on one, him and Lamar Jackson, obviously again we go back to are you going to freeze up or can you make the play? And
they
nine
can't.
times out of 10, regardless of if they're playing the Washington football team this week, I'm still betting on Lamar Jackson. I'm betting on Lamar Jackson every time to win that one on one. And that's where people make mistakes. It's obviously a team game, but if you're going to send that blitz, your defensive lineman is going to have to win as well. And that's where I think of the advantage. I wouldn't even say advantage, but we have a strength, and this is the week that our strength is going to have to help really carry our defense for the most part.
Yeah, because number one, people understand that Lamar Jackson's way more agile than Robert Griffin was. I mean, use the Robert
Yes.
Griffin comparison, and that's good. But Robert Griffin was a straight line runner. He was a sprinter. Lamar Jackson is agile. It's a whole different nightmare, I think, than Robert Griffin ever was. So that's one thing. And the other thing is when you do this, if they are going to blitz these guys, yeah, you have the one-on-one matchup with Lamar, but the other problem is, they've got Marquise Brown in the backfield, who is a burner. The receiver Marquise Brown.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty decent tight end, Mark Andrews. Who's the second most targeted player on the team? Mark Andrews. What does Washington do terribly historically? Cover tight ends. Particularly if they have to deal with a running quarterback, it's going to make it all that much harder. So, Kansas City was able to play a lot of man defense on Monday. That is not something that Washington probably needs to do. Call me crazy, but I'm not overly excited about a Kendall Fuller-Marquise Brown matchup because Marquise is a lot faster than Kendall Fuller. I mean, a lot faster than Fuller. Fuller is not a burner by corner standards. So I don't know if Washington really has the personnel to pull off what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying maybe this is what you go with. Because what we do know is if you just sit back and let Lamar do his thing, it's going to go really bad really fast.
Well,
Especially when you get a mad Baltimore Ravens team like they're going to get.
yeah, personally, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even play man against Lamar
No.
Jackson. It's just rare especially for a team like the Washington. Like if you can, if you were able to play man, then I would leave someone in a quarterback spy mode. But that's the only reason why you would leave somebody in man is if you had good covered corners, good man to man corners. And while you got Kendall Fuller, that's all you're relying on. And it's hard to really say that you can have your other cornerbacks step up to consistently keep these other receivers in check. I'm not saying like they're world class. This isn't Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins we're going up against. But when you have speed like Hollywood Brown, and then a Willie Snead who's a decent route runner, and then you have Mark Andrews Mark Andrews I haven't seen his game specifically, but obviously he's a respectable tight end. I'll just leave it at that. You're going to have your hands full in terms of having your best cover guys on each of those three guys. And those are where the matchups are, but who's going to play spy? I mean, this is for for all the flack that we give Troy Apke. I'm not saying, obviously, like for a free safety, he needs to stay deep. But for a guy that we give flack and Troy Apke, this would probably be the best game he stays in spot. You don't have to worry about him getting beat deep if you have somebody else back there. But Troy Apke, all he has to do is just stay with Lamar Jackson, and it can work like that. But then
he's literally the only one that can.
Yeah, then you're getting a little too technical in terms of who you're going to keep back there. A lot of people like Cameron Curl, but Cameron Curl plays well in man coverage. He was able to check tight ends and slot guys and slot receivers. So that's where it's like that you leave that up to the coordinator. But you have options. If you're gonna do spy, I would keep Troy Apke in the spy. That's the one guy. But you're gonna have to have Cameron Curl on the field too, so you can try and get something done.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Apke to take on a job like that. But maybe they have no choice. Baltimore has a ton of speed. Because Willie Snead, you mentioned Willie Snead. He runs a 4.4. He's not a slouch.
Oh, for some reason I thought he ran a 4.6. That's crazy.
No, he's in the 4.04 category. And Devin Duvernay, we saw him run a kickback. Against the Chiefs. He's a burner. I didn't realize he was that much of a burner. I mean, on the broadcast, they said he's a world-class sprinter. So there's a ton of speed there. And it's not like, Fabian Moreau and Jimmy Moreland are keeping up with these guys. So, I mean, you've got to play realistically zone defense, probably a softer zone. That does not help defense against a Jackson. It's a monumental challenge, I think, this week. Because the other thing is, Mark Ingram is no slouch either. He's averaging 4.5 yards a carry himself. So, they can always go to him. He's got, 26 carries on the year? Yeah, 26 carries. So,
and that's what makes him dangerous. You got two really good running backs. 3 if you want to count Lamar Jackson. The second one I was speaking on was J.K. Dobbins. You got 3 really good running backs essentially. That you're really in. Wait, do they still have Gus Edwards?
I don't believe so.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. No, they do. No, you're right. He's had 18 carries this year. So yes.
Yeah, I'm about to say they got Gus Edwards. They got 4. They got 4 really good running backs. And they know how to use them. Greg Roman is not new to any of this. And that's what makes it scary because I've always had respect for Greg Roman. And Greg Roman against Jack Del Rio is going to be a really good matchup. But Greg Roman has the horses. And Jack Del Rio is trying to get him. And so he's a little bit undermanned, but this is the same thing where coach is going to have to really call a hell of a game plan. Now, I'm not saying this in a sense where it's like it seems like an impossible feat because if everybody does their job, and we know how simple of a task that is in terms of saying it, but you can really execute if everybody's on the same page. You can really win a game on your side of the ball if everybody executes. It's going to come down to being perfect, being in your run fits, not getting too far wide where you leave running lanes for the quarterback when he's dropping back the pass, and then obviously not having miscommunication on the back end. Communicating and making sure that everybody's on the same page is something that's going to help, especially in the zone. It's going to help everybody win their matchups on every snap. And again, it sounds easy, but how many mistakes are they going to make on game day is really going to determine how many points they can score, because they're going to score. Is how many points they're going to score.
Yeah, because we've seen a ton of miscommunications in the defensive secondary for 3 weeks in a row. We've seen him over and over and over again, and I'll tell you. One would normally think that Landon Collins would, your Pro Bowl strong safety Landon Collins would have a big role in this. He misses a lot of tackles. He missed some important tackles last week, and it's kind of a hallmark. I saw it all the way back to the Giants. I think Landon Collins in a game like this, I think Landon Collins needs to play a cleaner game than he has been playing recently. For sure.
I 100% agree. Landon confuses me because that's just being nice. Like Landon confuses me. I know it's crazy because he plays good, but then he has these he's consistently having these plays that's like bad tackles, being out of place sometimes, and that's what throws me off. It's like this isn't you. So why is it happening now? And that's what really confuses me because he's not a bad player, and we all know that. So the things that's going on right now is just unexplainable. And it's buildable momentum because the last 2 years in 2019 and then 2020, you see these things and you wonder how bad or can this be like a mental thing or where he's lacked concentration or something like that. I don't know because it's not like he's playing bad again, but he just has to end up turning around and play this to get this $84 million contract worth like top value. Yes.
Yeah, I saw him miss tackles going all the way back to the Giants. To be honest, I kind of see why the Giants didn't want to give him a huge contract, if I'm being fair about it. But he is a good player. There's no doubt. But the missed tackle thing is something that, in this week in particular, more than other weeks, when you've got the top rushing quarterback in the NFL and the league MVP, this is not a week to do that. I think everybody really needs to be on their game. This is one of these games where if there's going to be any hope at all, we're going to have to, one, the defense needs to play a perfect game, and two, they're just going to sort of have to catch Baltimore being a little lax and hope they don't take this game seriously maybe. It's really, I think, the only way. And the other thing is I don't think this defense is good enough to really key in. Baltimore really does a lot of things pre-snap. Their plays are complicated. They run, like I said, they run a lot of play action. I don't know if our secondary in particular is going to be good with that. They're inexperienced. They've got a guy who runs the play action a lot. Call me crazy, but I don't think it's a recipe for success. Particular.
I don't disagree. Like I said, it's not easy to actually do what I said. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's easier to say obviously, but it's just not easier to do. Especially when you got guys like the circumstances that the Washington team has.
Right.
Like you already named it. I'm not even gonna repeat it. But you have that youth and experience to a degree. So you're just hoping that they understand the importance or significance of the game they're in, because regardless of what Ron talking about in terms of he's just trying to look out for his younger guys or whatever it is. I can't quote him right now, but the nonsensical stuff that he's been saying about why he's ending these games the way he's ending them. For the record, I don't know if it was you that I was talking to, and I'm about to get off track for a quick second.
That's okay.
I mentioned Antonio Gibson. I think it was going into the half where he made this weird thing where he was going out of bounds against the Browns. I'm talking about. He was going out of bounds to try and save some time for a field goal or potential to continue to drive. And instead of going out of bounds, he had the clear lane to go out of bounds, he just dove down to keep the clock running.
Yeah, I remember that play. I was confused on that one as well.
So now I may have misheard, but I did hear what I'm about to say. It may have been the case that the person assumed that Ron told him to go down, but the person that I was speaking to who covers the team on a radio station or something like that, he specifically said that the coaches were telling their players, Antonio Gibson, on that specific play to go down, to stay in bounds.
That definitely wasn't me that told you that.
No. What I was saying was I mentioned it on Twitter, and I know that I talked to some people when it happened. I was saying that the play looked weird, and I don't know if it was you that I had talked to as well. But post game, meaning yesterday, is when I heard the conversation on a radio or a podcast where they mentioned that Ron or coaching staff told him to stay in bounds.
Yeah, let's just stop. Yeah, we're a little bit off track, but that's okay.
And where I was getting at, that's what I was about to say. I'm bringing it back. Where I was getting at is, regardless of what Ron and them are talking about, it doesn't matter. None of that stuff. Like, these people are trying to win. And regardless of the youth, regardless of the inexperience, they're going to dial up a winning game plan that they feel like is going to be the best case to win. And, again, it doesn't matter how many times I tell you, like, this is going to work out or this is what you need to do. They just need to execute it. So they're going to be trying to win. And however close or however long they're in the game early on, like, that's going to be the game plan, regardless of what Ron is talking about, looking out for his guys or anything like that. As long as they're in it, they're going to keep fighting.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get at, by the way, is I don't understand this bit with Ron and the end of the half and the end of the game. I would be insulted if I was a player, I'll tell you that much, because what it would tell me is you don't respect me enough to even give me a chance to win. Did the game go well? No. But what are you trying to spare my tender feelings here? This is professional football. He needs to make every effort to let his team win. And by the way, it's not like they couldn't use a 2-minute drill practice in real life scenario, in a game scenario, for God's sakes. I don't understand what Ron is doing. I think the players need to call him out on it. Some offensive leader, Dwayne Haskins or somebody, needs to call out Ron Rivera for doing that, because I think it's openly insulting to the players on the field, personally.
I agree. I really don't have much else to say about that, because eventually the people that came here to win, or the younger guys who want to win and feels like they're being hindered by their coach, they're going to start, like, it. At some point they believe in you, but at some point they start to question you. When they start to question you, some of them will end up losing respect for you. Yeah. So he just has to be careful. Just leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move over to the Washington offense versus the Ravens defense. Look, Dwayne Haskins has taken a ton of flack this week from the fan base, justifiably so. He didn't play well. I did go back and study the All-22 film from the Browns game. Focus on the offensive line. To see it, my initial impression was that a big problem was the line was giving him no time. And I got to say, he had more time than I thought. Upon rewatch on All-22, the protection was not as bad as I originally thought it was. The left side is far weaker in pass pro. Dron Christian, Wes Martin, aren't up to snuff. But for the bulk of these pass plays, Haskins had the time to get rid of the ball for the most part. No line is perfect. This line isn't, certainly, and he had to get rid of the ball quick, there's no doubt. But he wasn't hit a ton. It was more on, I think, certainly they're a part of it, and it's a team game, but I think Haskins' problems were probably 75% Haskins and 25% O-line, whereas if you'd talked to me Sunday, I would have probably said 50-50. So take that for what you will. I thought he missed a lot of reads. Again, watching it back, he had Dontrell Inman on a crossing route on one of those hits that it just blew my mind. How can you not see this? So defensive. So point is, Washington offense, I think this is more about them and less about the Ravens. If this team gets it together, starts to execute appropriately, because that's the other thing. Their execution is just terrible, at times, just terrible. So I think that this can be a respectable offense, but they're just not all there right now. And Dwayne Haskins has got to be better. He's got to read the field better. There's no doubt. Now, the other thing about the offensive line I'll say is that they don't open rushing lanes very well.
No.
They're a better pass blocking team than a run blocking team, and when you have a running back like Antonio Gibson behind you, it doesn't help, because Gibson is really young, and what I can see in Gibson is typical of young running backs. He's not decisive, hitting the holes, because he's not experienced. You can really see experienced running backs are very decisive in the way they run, in the way they see the field. And Gibson has talent, but he's not really there yet. So it doesn't help when you have a mess of rushing lanes, which they have, instead of clear, defined rushing lanes by a solid offensive line. So the combination of that doesn't do well, I think, for the running game. But again, I think this is more about the offensive execution than it is necessarily about the Ravens. The Ravens have a good defense, obviously. They're very aggressive in the way they play. They have a lot of talent. I'm not saying we match up well with them or anything like that, but it doesn't have to be a disaster. It can be a solid game if Washington can get it together.
I think it's kind of crazy. I think it's kind of crazy how the best called game from Turner this point in the season, it's only 3 games, but the best game he's called, was
The worst one.
Yeah, was the worst one by his players. Um, it's so crazy. Now we did have that. We had 5 interceptions. I don't know. Excuse me, 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions.
Right.
5 turnovers, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Excuse me, four turnovers by Haskins. I don't know how many penalties there were offensively, but there were some that
It wasn't much.
completely killed drives. I know it's 2 then for sure on offense. One of them was BS. I really didn't think the offensive pass interference on Terry McLaurin was a penalty. And I mean that's neither here nor there, but just generally speaking, so many mistakes in a game where the offensive coordinator called his best game. He schemed up everybody well. The running backs who I've said, I'm not buying in, and I'm not really going to forgive them for cutting Adrian Peterson until they show or prove that this thing is going to work out.
I'm right there with you, man. It's a big mistake.
Yep, they've had 2 good games in a row. I'll give them that in terms of like the backs. I'll give them that they had 2 good games in a row. But then you get to the you get to the quarterback, and then you just throw your arms up in the air, and it's like, what the hell? We said we were gonna talk about it. I just don't know what's going on with Haskins. And thinking about it, because I try to take everything into an account, it is just mind-boggling because we heard so much in the offseason about, we're talking about, when I say this, I say the head coach, talking about how he was progressing, how he's eventually earned the right to be the starter. Even Haskins throughout the offseason, he posted his progress, his workouts, his weight loss, all these things. He's done great for his body, but then you get on the field and like I realized nobody talked about what he's done mechanically to improve as a passer. Like that's just me thinking about everything that we've looked into the offseason. Like we've seen the workouts. We've talked about, we've heard from the head coach about what he's doing generally to get better. From a leadership standpoint and an accountability standpoint. But we never heard about what he was doing to become a better passer.
Yeah.
And now here we are, week 3. Now week 4, 3 weeks into the season, and
he's not a better passer.
And truth be told, like saying what the heater that he was on at the end of the last season, you wonder like if it was a hot streak versus like is that who he really is? Because quarterbacks got on a hot streak before. We know one who was here in what was it? I think it was 2016, and he completely failed or crashed and burned the last couple games of the year. Like quarterbacks get on hot streaks, and it's just weird. And I know you got some specific thoughts on Dwayne, and we could talk about that too. I just wanted to bring him up now before we moved on to the rest of the offense, and Scott Turner and all that type of stuff. But I think that this was this was just like one of the things that just kind of bothered me because I know a lot of fans are ready to get him out of here. Some are really willing to stay patient. I'm willing to stay patient, but you got to show signs of life.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think the idea of replacing Dwayne Haskins right now is nutsy cuckoo. To be honest, I mean that's just crazy. I mean he's your last year's number one draft pick. You got to give him more than week 4, this year, especially considering everything that went on last year. And numbers wise, I mean so far he's about where he was last year. 56% completion percentage, 75, almost 76 quarterback rating, maybe a little worse. So he hadn't progressed statistically. In terms of when you watch him, number one, there's a stark difference between the way he sees the field now and the way he saw it at Ohio State. I think he's a little overwhelmed still with the speed of the game and whatnot, because he's just not seeing the field like he was in college. Obviously, there's a reason for that. And yeah, the mechanics were off then, and they're still off now. The footwork. A lot of times he's throwing with just his upper body. He does this when he had a lot of rollouts against Cleveland, and he does this weird Aaron Rodgers like kind of jump ball thing. When he's rolling out to his right and tries to throw the ball. That's what Aaron Rodgers does. He takes like a leap and throws the ball. That's not great technique. When you're Aaron Rodgers, you can get away with that. When you're Dwayne Haskins, you can't. Somebody definitely needs to spend some time with him because that kind of stuff is correctable. What isn't correctable by coaching, because you can get a coach to fix his footwork and the way the ball comes out of his hand, that kind of stuff. What isn't correctable is his field vision. That's something that he's just going to have to develop. Because that Dontrell Inman play I'm talking about, I hope you guys remember it against Cleveland. Amazing, and I think the other thing that happened against Cleveland is he was a little bit shell shocked by how bad it was going. There was another play that he had tight end maybe in the right flats. It looks right at him, the guy is open, turns away, looks left, gets hit, and there's a lot of those kind of things where he's just not really making solid decisions. He's not helped at all by the talent around him. The receivers do not get open. Unless they're schemed open, the non-Terry McLaurin receivers do not get open, and that doesn't help. And it doesn't help that the left side of his line is bad. But I really think more of it was Dwayne than not. That having been said, in terms of the fan reaction, Jamal, I mean, I think the fans have gone crazy. Washington fans have a history of this. They'll pick a guy to hate, and they'll hate on him for a couple weeks. But you have to take the long game with Dwayne Haskins. This is the year he has to prove himself. And because he's had 2 mediocre and 1 bad game does not mean it's time to bench him, particularly when you've got Kyle Allen as your backup. What's Kyle Allen going to do? And what's that going to prove? He's not going to be the starter here. And sure, you could play Alex Smith, but, like the reasons you brought a couple weeks ago, they may not want to play Alex Smith. And even if you do, he's not the future. The guy who's the future is Dwayne Haskins, and you have to let him suffer through this. Even if it's a wasted season, you have to find out if Dwayne Haskins is a guy or not. Because if it is a wasted season, they're going to be in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, and we need to know, if they need to replace him. I hope to God they're not on the Trey Lance sweepstakes. I watched that guy, from North Dakota State. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but that dude doesn't have it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's 2 things. I always feel a little nervous about quarterbacks who has that type of background in college where I think he went a whole season without having an interception, without throwing an interception. And that's fine and it's impressive, but everything is so glaringly positive, you forget that you may be missing that negative, where is his flaw? And his flaw may be completely detrimental as a professional quarterback. I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying he has it, but it's always that one thing that bothers me where I think what am I missing when I see this guy? And I don't know what I'm missing, but I know that there's something there that I'm missing.
And I don't want to get off on Trey Lance too much, but number one, he's kind of a Walmart version of Cam Newton in a sense. The way he runs is the same, that upright running style, but his arm is a lot less than Newton. He's throwing rainbows down the field, underthrows guys all the time, had no pressure whatsoever, 0, because he's playing whoever North Dakota State's playing. I'm not saying people shouldn't draft the kid, but he's not a first-round draft pick, I don't think. But regardless, so that's
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
and I don't have an opinion on him per se. It's just like me specifically, I just don't know what I'm missing when I see it. And then moving forward, like Justin Fields, I know, like you said, we're getting off on a tangent. I just have to, since we're talking about college quarterbacks.
Go ahead.
If Haskins fails,
you're gonna draft the next Ohio State guy.
That's literally what I was getting at. Like, what you have to understand that there is something with the Ohio State quarterbacks. Like, you have to really understand that it's more scheme than anything else. Like with why they're so successful. Why don't you understand that? Before Dwayne Haskins, it was Cardale Jones. Before Cardale Jones, it was J.T. Barrett. Before J.T. Barrett, you had Troy Smith. Like, every single one of them, what happened? Nothing happened. They sucked. They sucked. And you're hoping that Dwayne Haskins bucks the trend, but like, what is it looking like right now?
Looks bad.
Yeah, it looks bad, and you're hoping that he bucks the trend, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, you need something as soon as possible. I know, like, for example, with Clemson, Deshaun Watson was the first person to buck the trend. Before him, you had I can't remember his name. I can't even remember his name. And that's,
you talking about the kid? Oh God, no,
Taj something.
Yeah,
Taj. Yeah. He was really good in college. He amounted to nothing in the NFL. And then it may have been one other quarterback from Clemson.
Well, you know what? A lot of these quarterbacks, it's they have got so much talent around them that they're just out talenting all these kids, and they don't really have to be that good. If you've got a massive offensive line and an unbelievable running game, and guys who are you've got 3 Terry McLaurins who are all running 4.3s and running behind, up, around, and through the Indianas of the world, you don't have to be that good, and that's part of it. That's why all these Alabama quarterbacks, none of them are any good either, for the most part.
I agree.
Okay, let's get back to Washington here real fast before we run out of time. Washington offense against the Ravens defense. The Ravens defense has about mediocre numbers, okay? But you got to understand that it's very young, early in the season. A lot of these mediocre numbers are skewed because of the Kansas City Chiefs game.
So they'll eventually level out.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can pay a lot of attention to the numbers in this game. So what matchups do we have that are an advantage? Terry McLaurin is always an advantage. He's already faced down Darius Slay. He can face down, the Ravens corners too, and I think still do pretty well. I'm all about Terry McLaurin in matchups. I think you have to take advantage of that. Beyond that, I don't know what advantages they really have but him in a game like this.
Yeah, I think Marcus Peters is going to be a huge wild card in the sense of he's a great baiter. And Dwayne Haskins is a young quarterback who just this week his head coach talked about, and he acknowledged, actually I think he acknowledged today, we're recording on a Wednesday, I think he acknowledged today in a presser that he clarified in what he was saying on the field Sunday, because a lot of people felt like he was staring down a lot of people, and I get where he's coming from, where he stated he wasn't necessarily, well, he was staring down people, but what he did prior to that, he went through his reads, but he went through them so quick. So he got to the person that he wanted to throw, and he ended up staring him down. Now, I can't sit here and say that he's wrong. I don't know him. From my perspective, there was a lot on some of the interceptions that he threw. He was staring people down. But then, obviously, he threw 3 interceptions. So there's probably one or two that he's pointing to specifically. But I say that to say Marcus Peters is a guy who's very, he plays mind games with the quarterbacks. And not only can you not overthrow your receiver, you have to play smart when you're throwing to his area, Peters' area, because you may think that your receiver is open, but it wasn't. It was never open from the beginning.
He's going to bait you.
Yes.
And, he's going to bait you, and Haskins fell for that, last week. And listen, I told you I studied the All-22. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the All-22 yet from Cleveland. When we say that Dwayne Haskins was staring down receivers, what I mean to say about that is that from the moment the ball entered his hands to the moment the ball left his hands, he looked at nobody else. It wasn't a matter of him looking off anybody. It was the fact that he didn't even make an attempt to look off anybody. It was really bad and really obvious on some of those plays, particularly the interceptions. I'll take him at his word. Like you said, I don't know the man, and we don't know what he was seeing, but it looked to me on the film like he was really having a big problem with it.
Yeah. Now I did see. I saw one. I did happen to look at the film for about a good hour or so today, and it was one that I actually posted where the fourth quarter interception he threw to Goodson, I believe, the linebacker, where he was throwing down the field, throwing down the seam to Logan Thomas. He literally stared that down. He stared it down. And that's why I was
that's
like,
what I'm talking about. That was one of them I was talking about. Was that play?
And that's why I was like, I did see him stare down a couple of them, but and that was the couple part was an exaggeration. I saw one for sure. But if he's talking about the other two, who am I to say that he's wrong? I did see one where he stared it down, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And again, so in terms of Baltimore, I don't want to say there's not a lot of hope, but there's not a lot of hope.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot of hope offensively.
No.
You really just gotta hope that you're able to have success early on the ground game because your quarterback's going to need it, but you also are going to have those opportunities. You're going to have those like their pass rush isn't that great just yet. Like yes they have yes they have a good defense collectively, but the Ravens defense isn't like the best pass rushers. No. They have the names. Calais Campbell is an elite interior lineman, but can he get to the quarterback and wreak havoc throughout the course of a game? I think that he can, but collectively they haven't been doing that this year. So
they only have 6 sacks on the year.
Yeah, and they haven't been doing that this year. So not to say that they're not getting pressure, because I don't know what that statistic looks like for them. But in terms of getting to the quarterback and actually sacking the quarterback, you're going to have your opportunities, but you have to be able to establish some type of ground game to help your quarterback out, because it's not going to mean nothing if you're if you're in 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s throughout the course of the game, and you're just in for a long day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Washington needs to start fast. They haven't started fast in any of these games, particularly. Unless you count one touchdown in the first quarter.
I'll give them the Cleveland one, but even still, that's the bare minimum. That's
not starting fast. That's starting average.
I agree.
Congratulations, you scored a touchdown. I mean, because the guys on the Chiefs, the Monday Night Football broadcast pointed out that the Ravens like to play ahead, play from ahead. They like to get ahead and stay ahead, and then just crush the life out of you. And one of the things that the Chiefs do is, they're good enough where they can put up points immediately. And that kind of throws Baltimore off a little bit. And so if Washington's going to have any hope in this, I think that's the model. You have to start fast. You have to drive straight down the field a couple times early in the game and throw them off a little bit. How you do that is another matter. Like I said, Terry McLaurin can't win a game by himself. Even if he can, you have to have the quarterback to have a much better day than he did. So it's it's tough. Do you have any other thoughts before we move on? Because we're over time. Yeah, predictions. Go ahead, man. You start. Prediction.
Well, I'm only one off in my predictions to this point. I had us beating the Cardinals and losing to the Browns. We lost to both teams. So I still have us losing to the Ravens. But to be honest with you, I think we're 13.5 point underdogs.
Yeah, early in the week it was at least.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. It's probably they probably.
You wanted to say they were gonna cover, didn't you?
Yeah, and then I remembered in my conversation I had with my gambling friends, the team is gonna be an underdog the entire season. So when you see opportunity, like a value opportunity for the football team, that may be delusional, because you're gonna see some value throughout the course of the year because they are underdogs. They're gonna be underdogs in every game, so you have to be a little bit smarter than that. And I'm talking about myself here and other people who like to gamble on the Washington team. this isn't one of those games where you see value. I think Baltimore covers, but I also think that they win. I think it's going to be close for a little bit, but then Washington just can't keep up. So I'm gonna say
give a final score.
Yeah. I'm gonna say 24-10.
Okay, I just like to point out that Washington lost to the Cleveland Browns. What was it? 30. What was the final? 34-20. Cleveland lost to the Ravens 38-6. Okay, that's all I'll say. In terms of my prediction, I don't think this is going to be close ever. I think they'll give it a go in the first half, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a big. This is going to be kind of a blowout. I think it's going to be something along the lines of, Baltimore's put up 30 twice against two bad teams. Cleveland and Houston, and I think they're going to do so again. I think it's going to be something like 35-10. I wish I didn't have to keep predicting these things, but this just isn't their week. I don't think.
I don't think I'll be in the mood to do a post game show after getting blown out again. I don't know.
It'll give me a chance to give the game ball to somebody else, to like the other team again.
It just feels so depressing because we've been doing this for a year straight. Like how many times are we going to play a game where we don't compete? I don't understand it, but. Fingers crossed is we're both wrong. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, fingers crossed. We'd love nothing better. They've beaten the Ravens before. They beat them in 2012 with the
2012, 2016.
Yeah.
They last beat us in 2008.
Weirdly enough, yeah, all-time head-to-head against the Ravens are 3-3. So, and they're 2-0 against them in the streak. So that's that. So that is we're gonna cut it off there. We're way over time. Our arbitrary time deadline. So that is it for our Ravens game preview. We will see you Monday morning. Yeah, Sunday, and then the show will be out Monday morning for the game wrap up. So that's it. Talk to you guys later.